Welcome to Designing Hollywood. I am your host, Allyson Fanger. Thank you so much for joining us. Our guest today is someone who I am such a fan of, both personally and professionally, the incomparable Trayce Field. Welcome, Trayce.
Hi.
Hi. Trayce Gigi Field is a Los Angeles-based costume designer. She's best known for her vibrant taste in color and her quirky yet fun choices in style and texture, professionally and personally.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, right. She mixes high and low fashion with a dash of vintage to create unique and stylish looks. Her multicultural background helps her see the world through a broad perspective. Trayce is currently costume designing The After Party, produced by Lord & Miller. Trayce's most recent designs can be seen on Sarah Cooper's Netflix special, Everything is Fine. She recently wrapped production. I know that seems so cool. We're going to talk about that. We're talking about that. She recently wrapped production on Lionsgate's Barb and Star Go to Vista Del Mar, starring Kristen Wiig, Annie Mumolo. Is that how you pronounce her name?
Mumolo. You got it.
And Jamie Dorian. Trayce is hosting a Warner Brothers podcast titled Hustle and Know, where she highlights diverse people behind the scenes, hoping to expose unserved communities with the prospect of various careers in the film industry, which is fantastic.
Why, thanks.
We're going to talk about that too.
Cool.
Trayce's credits include Netflix hit Dead to Me, A Study in Contrast, AJ and the Queen with the very formidable RuPaul, as well as the show that put her talents onto the radar, Two Broke Girls. Which broke the mold for how to dress waitstaff.
Right?
I think.
Cute. Super cute.
So good. All of that being said, it's great to have you here today and to see you.
Thank you.
Just saying, it was so good,
I
so
love
good to see you.
I'm so happy to be here. I love talking about costume design.
Yeah, me too. It's good. Costume designers, interviewing costume designers is like the
right?
best.
Because we know the ins and outs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So your career trajectory has been constant and steady. Clearly, you managed to deliver up the looks. But I know our listeners will want to know, how did you get your start in costume design?
I got my start in costume design over 20 years ago. Shh, I look really good. And basically, I worked at the mall. I was a store manager at Contempo. I know I'm dating myself.
Oh my God.
Like, for sure. And then I went to FITM, and I really wanted to get into costume design. I was totally inspired by, like, wanting to know where the actors got their clothes. That was, like, really my first thought. Mm-hmm. And all the shoppers that came into Contempo, I would just ask, like, how they got started, costume designers, stylists, whoever. And most of them were like, well, you're going to have to work for free. You're going to have to start at the bottom and work your way up. And I was like, okay. I mean, I'm 20.
Yeah.
Sure. No problem. So Diane Kennedy, who was the costume designer on Sabrina the Teenage Witch, yes, again, late 90s, she came in and she was shopping, and she's one of the people I asked how they got started. And she offered to interview me as a costume PA. Needless to say, I got that job. And I ran an errand to Western Costume. Shout out to Eddie Marks and to Jeff Marks. And I happened to meet Jeff in the supply store. And he helped me get an interview with Donna, who's no longer there, but who I love. And I got a job there. And basically worked there for like a year and a half, got into the union, and worked my way up.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Right?
I did not know this story.
Now you do.
I knew you worked at Western because Lou was telling me that.
Oh
Lou
my God,
Irick.
that's how I met Lou. Like,
yeah.
And for all of you who don't know, I was Lou's assistant for a while on Nip Tuck and various pilots. And literally, I text Lou probably a couple times a year just to tell her thank you, because my attention to detail definitely stems from working with her. I mean, she's one of the greats, and I'm so happy that I had my time with her, because it literally has influenced my career and my design choices.
So good. We all have those people that really made such a difference in our careers, you know, like a mentor type. And it's so important.
Yeah. I'm so big on giving back because I feel like someone took me under their wing, i.e. like Lou Irick and Susan Matheson and even like Vicky Oth. Like these people would pull me aside and say, you have an eye for like costumes, because I was a set girl. And they were like, you should really try this. And you know, I know, right? And
it's good.
Right. And if they hadn't taken me under their wing, I wouldn't be where I am today. So thank you to those ladies for sure. And I try to give back, like whoever I can help, like, you know, influence or help, like bring up or help, like, you know, help their career. You know, I try to do it. Yeah, if you have that right work ethic and you have the eye, like, let's do it. Let's all help each other.
Yeah, that's the path, right?
Yeah. There's definitely enough work for all of us. So I just feel like, I wouldn't be where I am had someone not helped me. So I definitely want to help people.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I love your story. Well, you answered several of my questions already. You're on top of it.
I got lots to say,
You're
lady.
ahead of it. Now I got to kind of go down here. Okay. So
okay.
you did. Okay. I was going to talk to you about like the path of working in different positions within the costume department, because I think that's really important. Like my mentor person was Sharon Davis.
Oh.
And she basically made me be set person for 2 shows.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't want to do set, Sharon.
I love
She was like,
Sharon.
it's really, Sharon's amazing.
I mean,
she was like
another curly hair sister.
yeah, I know. Exactly. And she was like, you have to, in order to understand the departments.
Yeah.
The department as a whole, you have to work in all the different positions.
Yeah.
So I did. And it was like very valuable for me as a designer.
I really think that working your way up, through the different costume positions helps you as a costume designer, 100%. Like, I started as costume PA. I was a set person. I was a key. I was a shopper. I was an assistant designer. Like, I just think like understanding what all it takes to do all those positions like really helps you like understand being a costume designer.
Yeah.
Because say you are designing like this amazing like action film, and to know that you need all these multiples and what those multiples are going to do and how to work it out with the stunts. Like, you don't learn that if you just go straight to being a costume designer. You learn that being right in the midst of all of it, picking the clothes so that the harnesses can go through them, and like just understanding like
I hate that stuff, but I know.
I know.
You do.
But
you
had like
yeah,
those.
You have to.
You're so much more dialed in as a costume designer when you have those skills under your belt. So
Yeah.
I always say like same thing you're saying. It's like you gotta do all those positions in order to like really understand the I'd say like the backstory behind the costume design.
It makes you a better department head too, because then people you can understand their jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to understand what's happening on set. And so what do you consider to have been your first big break then as a designer, segueing out of this conversation about different positions in the department?
I would say, look, I feel like there's a couple big breaks. Like, I was really into just doing like big commercials, like, Super Bowl commercials and lower budget films. Like, I worked with Greg Araki quite a bit early on in my career, and working with him, like, he like really empowered me to just do what I felt was right and inherently, and just let me be like creative. And so working with Greg was amazing. So shout out to Greg Araki. And segueing into like how I got Two Broke Girls, Michael Patrick King, who I also love. He's from Sex and the City, guys. He happened to be at the opening of Kaboom, which was a Greg Araki film. And he went up to Greg and was like, who designed these costumes? Like, I got to talk to this girl, basically.
That's amazing.
Isn't it amazing? And
it's a great story.
It's a good story.
Yeah.
And my story about meeting with Michael was even more awesome. So Two Broke Girls, my agent sent me that script, and my agent is somebody who used to be a UPM, so I've known him for years, so we're friends.
Okay.
And Matt Birch, guys.
Okay.
And so Matt was like, here's this TV script. You need, blah, blah, blah. It's Michael Patrick King. Like, and I was like, well, look, I don't want to do TV.
Cut to.
I was like, so can you just tell them I'm not interested? I would really just like to stay where I am.
Yeah.
Matt called me and he was like, so there's a few people in Hollywood you don't want to say no to. Michael Patrick King is one of those people. You have to take the meeting. And I was like, oh, all right. So I read the script and I end up loving it. And so now I'm all excited. So then I go in, I have this meeting with Michael, and he's a dream, by the way, super creative, and like, I'll tell you some of his tidbits in a second.
Okay.
But I go in for this meeting and we walk through the characters. I have my presentation to do the whole thing. And at the end, I was like, look, I love you. I was like, this has been surreal. I was like, even if I don't get this job, I just need you to know that this has been like such an amazing meeting. And he was like, what are you talking about? You're the only person I brought in for this job. See you in April. And I was like... walked out of there like sweating, being like, did that just really happen? So I feel like that's like one of my Hollywood moments. Like,
that's great.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But just like him in general, like one of the things he said to me, it was like, Tracey, sometimes it's about the words in the script, and sometimes it's about the clothes. And I was like, oh my God, I love you.
That is good.
Yeah.
Those are words of wisdom.
Right? And
sure.
it's just so cool to work with somebody who understands, like, sometimes it's a visual story.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is about the words. So,
Yes.
needless to say, I love working with him.
That's cool. Cool. Okay, so let's talk about your process for cultivating character. Starting with when you get a script. What starts to happen in your head? You sketching, researching. Just let's lay out your process when you get a script.
Well, if you can't tell already, I have a lot of enthusiasm for this. So when I read a script, I'm like visualizing characters. I'm like looking through like books. I'm like going on the internet, being like, okay, how can I make this person come to be a visual in my head, right? That's the first thing. And then I kind of create little backstories for them, like, oh, she would have done this or he would have done that, and that influenced their clothes and what have you. And then, I mean, just like most people, I start to create, like most costume designers, I start to create mood boards, and I do my research, and sometimes it's about an illustration. Sometimes I go to the fabric store and I'm just like touching fabrics and I get inspired. Sometimes it's a trip to the museum because like art does that for me sometimes.
Yeah, totally.
Another thing I like to do, which I think might be a little creepy or weird, is I like to walk down the street and I'm like snapping like photos of people that don't know I'm snapping photos.
I do that all the time.
And I'm like, these are real people.
Yeah, that's the best.
Yeah. So that's kind of like my process, I guess. And then obviously it's like you talk to the directors, you know, if you know who the actors are going to be, like you have a conversation with the actors to see if they're visualizing something. Yeah. And then I kind of just put it all into a mixing pot and poof.
Yeah. I also find that when I'm doing characters that sometimes I have to wait for the casting to come in,
right?
Before
I
can completely get my head around how I need to how much do I need to bring them up to what the character needs to be, or how much do I need to bring them back, because they add a lot of elements. Also, you know, just as a person,
100%.
As a personality, they bring something to the character. So I find that's always really.
And then sometimes you get the casting and you're like, oh my God, now I know what it is, like instantly. Because you're like, that person, boom, matches all the things I was thinking. And other times.
Sometimes not.
And sometimes you're like,
oh,
whoa, that is not what I was thinking.
Time to rethink.
Right? Now it's like, backtrack, let me figure that out.
Which late casting can be so hard in that way. Yeah.
So, I mean, do we want to really go into late casting?
No, not
okay,
really.
because, mean, that's a whole thing. Like, up all night trying to, like, figure it out. Especially now. It's like, you know, malls just opened, and like the stores are not as stocked as they usually are.
Shipping is slow.
Like, don't count on certain places to get you things on time.
I know how expectations have changed.
I mean, I will say Bloomingdale's has been amazing. Like, I get everything pretty much on time.
Oh, that's good.
I love
good to know.
Yeah.
Hot tip, everybody.
Order from Bloomingdale's.
Now you're going to get a really big gift card from Bloomingdale's.
I mean, I hope so. Hi, Bloomies.
Why not? Okay, so let's talk about your use of color, because you're well known for use of color, and color is really important.
Right?
I mean, for everybody, of course, but I love to talk about color and how you use it deliberately to help propel characters and help, you know, control the narrative. And then I just want to know from you, do you begin to see color choices very early on in your character cultivation, or
100%?
Yeah.
I really just think like color and texture are two of the things I think of almost instantly. Like, what kind of pattern could this person pull off or not? And in terms of like color, it's all about like working with the production designer to figure out what the palette actually would work like in, you know, the production design, where these characters are going to be, but also what works on the person themselves, you know. And it's like between like skin tone and eye color, and then the backstory about what colors mean. So you know, without giving away too much, because I'm not allowed to really talk about the after party too much, but there's a very specific color palette that's happening for each character, and it's so character driven. So it's like finding the right color that works for the backstory for that particular character was like something that it took me a couple days to like really sit down and figure out all the like chess pieces, you know?
Right.
So
That's cool.
Really, I mean, I have to say, like, the after party is just like such a creative endeavor. Like, I am so happy to like be a part of that job. Lord and Miller, like working with them, they're geniuses. So I am super excited to be a part of this one.
That's cool.
Yeah. So in terms of color, I just think it's really important, not only for like to fit within the production design, but also like just character driven. You know?
Yeah. I mean, it's part of the story, right?
100%.
And having a palette for each character is a necessity, in my
True.
opinion. So,
I mean, you don't want your characters to be wearing the same color either.
Yeah.
You know, so you always
Yeah.
have to think about that kind of thing. You also
Yeah.
don't want them to blend into a wall. You don't want them to
Yeah.
blend into the couch. Like, there
Yeah.
always needs to be some separation.
and it's real. People have their own palette. I mean, unfortunately, a lot of people wear a lot of black.
You mean like me?
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
like
my
me.
favorite color is black and gold, like together.
I
Like,
know. Well,
every day, black and
because
gold.
it's iconic.
Right? Can't go wrong with black and
You
gold.
cannot go
Plus, it's like, I just feel like it's kind of like something that is part of my personality. And then you
Yeah.
get to pop a red lip and
Yeah.
I'm done.
No, it looks good. It works for you.
Thank
I love it.
you.
Okay, so let's talk about Dead to Me, which is, of course, a study in character contrasts, much in the same way of the show that I'm most known for, Grace and Frankie is. So sometimes I look to your work there and think it's interesting to see that.
Your show is great.
Yeah, thank you. So I want to talk to you about how you cultivated those characters with the two distinct looks and about how you helped to tell the story through making the contrast in those two.
Well, I have to say, Dead to Me, first and foremost, some of the best scripts I've ever read, right? So Liz Feldman, who was not only a friend, but is the producer, writer, creator of that show. I actually met her on Two Broke Girls. She was one of the writers there.
Cool.
And we've done a couple projects together. She really wrote these characters very distinctly. And so for me, it was important to stay within the distinction that she had, like, you know, put out for these characters. So when you think about Linda Cardellini's character, right? So to be a Judy is like, she's soft, right? And she's puts out this like sort of like woo-woo, like gypsy sort of vibe.
Yeah.
And I wanted to reflect that in her clothing. So
Yeah.
like soft florals and soft colors and, you know, things that flow. Like you want to see her and feel like you want to give her a hug. Like
Yeah.
that's the kind of character she is. So I
The
mixed
fabrics, the soft fabrics. Yeah.
So I mix a little vintage with her. Pastels, really pretty florals, just to keep her in her Judy world. And then as far
She's kind of earthy too.
yeah, so it's totally earthy. Like she wears those kimonos. Like
Yeah.
that's what I mean by woo woo. You know, just kind
Yeah.
of like out there and like mystical. And she
Yeah.
likes her crystals and.
But just like I feel like you do it in such a nice, subtle way. You
Right.
know, it's not over the top, and it's not too much. It feels very real. You know, which I love.
That is such a big thing for me because you know in TV you can tend to be like TV land and everything's perfect
Yeah.
and everything and Liz isn't really Liz Feldman the creator. She's not really into that. She's into it being real. And
Yeah.
so that's how I am. And so I just feel like when you get to work with somebody where you understand each other like that,
Yeah.
that's how you're actually able to like do your job well. You know
Totally.
what I'm saying? Because they give you the free reign in order to like make what they wrote on paper come to life.
Yeah.
Visually.
Yeah. Yeah, and the writing, when the characters are so well written,
Right?
it really
It's
makes
so
such
helpful.
a huge difference. Yeah.
And so like with Christina Applegate's character, Jen, if you're a Jen, you're strong, right? And you have these silhouette clothes that is kind of like a uniform. You wear like these dark, strong colors. You're not into a whole bunch of prints or anything. It's like stripes. Or like you might get like a, you might get a check, maybe.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's like these solid, strong colors.
Yeah.
And she's a real estate agent, so
She's not huggable.
no. If anything, there's like a huge barrier
Yeah,
up where she's
exactly.
like, please don't come into my personal box.
Yeah.
And so that's what we want to like portray. And I feel like, I mean, not to pat myself on the back, but I really feel like these characters are so distinctly different, yet they're friends. And you can see how you can be different and still be friends.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just feel like they're just really distinct. And so
Yeah.
I'm very proud of this job.
Yeah,
like,
no, they look great. They're so good.
Thank you. Like I mean I could go on and on about like these characters only because like it has been one of my favorite shows to design.
Yeah.
But again, it's because of all the elements, you know?
Yeah, and like that's fun to have a character you can do vintage with like that.
my
It's always
fave.
so fun to go vintage diving. I know.
Yeah. My favorite.
So let's talk about the journey of these characters, and do they develop and change and influence each other at all? Because I find in my show we really made an effort to make sure you could see an influence on one another at some point. Do you see that coming, or are you not?
I feel like they're so different, and that's what makes them so special. But yet they're friends and have like this connection. In terms of clothes, not so much, but I will say you see a sort of breaking down of Jen's character, where she used to be like always had a blazer and was always tucked in and was always like super strong. And in the second season, she's kind of unraveling. And so we wanted to do that with her clothes.
Right.
So she's like more untucked and like doesn't always have a blazer. And like sometimes she's just like kind of looks like she threw her clothes on and like ran out the door.
Right.
And I think that's important because it helps tell the story.
Yes, exactly. So, I mean, sure, it depends on each script too.
Yes,
like what's
for
happening,
sure,
obviously.
for sure.
So,
yeah.
Okay, so I
Can we just talk about James Marsden though for a second?
Oh, he's so
I mean, first of all, so cute. Has the best hair. And girls, the nicest. Like literally
I
the
know.
nicest.
He is really nice. I've met him too. He's really lovely.
I mean, I can't say enough good things about this guy.
Yeah.
Not that the ladies aren't nice because they're super nice too, but James
That's always
Marsden.
helpful.
So nice. And he can wear clothes like no
Yeah.
other. So, hello.
Are you guys, what's happening with Dead to Me? Are you going to start that back on that one, season 3?
So season 3 is, yes, we are starting.
Oh, you are?
Really soon.
Oh, good.
Yes.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
That's
so
good.
for all you Dead to Me fans,
Yay.
it's definitely coming back. Season 3, wrap it all up. This will be our last season, sadly. But I know Liz Feldman has a lot of tricks in store for you. So tune in for sure.
Good.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
I know.
For the last season.
Yeah.
That's
So many people I know love the show. So
yeah, it's been a great show.
Yeah, I'm super proud of it.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk for a second about the impact that we as costume designers have upon the public. Like, I know my work on Grace and Frankie's inspired and influenced a culture of boldness and of defying norms.
Yes.
I think for a certain generation. And how do you feel about that within the context of Dead to Me also?
Well, first of all, let's just give a shout out to you too, because I feel like you really empowered like advanced,
Style at any age.
style at any age. Thank you. That's even
Timeless,
that's
ageless
such a
style.
better way of saying it. But I think like that show like really empowered women to be like, you know what, age is just a number, and so
exactly.
those women look fantastic.
Well, thank you.
So
but we're not talking about me. So we'll talk about like that. Like, but do you feel
I
too
know,
like
but
in a way like your character, Linda Cardellini's character, just has like a really unique self. I mean,
She
you can
does.
really see so much of who she is in your work.
Thank you.
So, and I think it influences people.
It does. So across the board for me, I definitely feel like I reach the public. Like, let's be real. Like,
you embrace your uniqueness.
right? And so
The two of us with our hair
I
and everything,
know.
right?
So with Two Broke Girls, I mean, people were those girls for Halloween, like
That's so
for
cool.
years.
That's the best when someone does a Halloween
For
costume.
years, you could buy those uniforms on CBS.com. Like, people would send me photos. And I had, like, seriously, there was, like, 5 guys in West Hollywood all dressed like either Beth or a cat or,
I love it.
So it was, like, Max. It was amazing. So I felt like definitely with Two Broke Girls reached the public. And then, with Dead to Me, it was such a phenomenon. I had so many people reach out to me and wanted to know where I got the ladies' clothes, like every day.
Nuts.
So what I started doing is I started making myself like a brand sort of like spreadsheet because people would ask me like where I got things, and it's like, well, I shopped that like, I don't know, 6 months ago. So I kind of remember, but I want to make sure I give them the right
know.
info. So I started making like a brand sheet so I could respond to people. And there's so much cosplay of these two ladies. Like,
Is there?
There is. And so like
that's
people reach out to me on
awesome.
Instagram
Yeah.
and they say, hey, look at me, I'm a Jen, or hey, look at me, I'm a Judy, or thank
Yeah.
you so much. Where'd you get this dress? I need to have it. Judy's boots and Judy's jewelry. Like, I can't tell you how many times people have reached out and wanted to know. So general public, yes, definitely reached out.
That's cool. I love it. That's good.
Yeah.
Inspiring.
Totally inspiring.
I just think that's always interesting to talk about because we as costume designers have become more accessible now
Yeah.
to people.
Yeah.
They can reach out, DM us,
Yeah.
and we answer.
I always answer.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the thing. I'm so excited that you're
Yeah.
so excited
Yeah.
about the clothes
know.
or the jewelry or the shoes or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I have to let you know where I got it. Like,
Yeah,
know?
exactly.
So,
I know, agree.
yeah.
Agree.
It makes me happy. Warms my
Me
little
too.
heart.
Me too. Because we love our work.
It's true.
Okay, so let's talk about AJ and the Queen for a minute. Because
yes.
I also worked with RuPaul. He was on our show.
Yeah.
He was amazing.
Yes.
And I was a little like, oh my gosh, am I going to be dressing RuPaul? I feel a little like I need to back off from RuPaul. Because
Rue,
Rue is
yeah.
so amazing. And Rue could not have been more lovely. So can you talk about that show and your experience creating looks for that show and for Rue and the complicated process of creating looks for drag, which I think is really personally quite uniquely challenging.
So, AJ and the Queen, across the board, I did drag looks for everyone. Only like a couple things for Rue, because Zaldi does Rue's drag.
Right.
And shout out to Zaldi, because of course
Zaldi's
does
amazing.
an amazing job.
Amazing,
He's so
yeah.
talented.
Yes.
But all the other drag queens were me. And so like I have to say, dressing drag is it is a skill unto itself.
Yes.
Like if you don't know, you do not know. And it was
so
a
hard.
learning it's a challenge. It was definitely a learning curve for me. I'm so glad that I got to do it, because now I understand all the like, fundamentals that like go into it.
Yeah.
And then dressing Rue as a I did all of his male looks, and look, he's a supermodel. He can wear almost anything. You put it on him and you're like, okay, my job here is done.
Because he's just like the attitude, and he just
the way he
owns
stands
it
and like
all.
those
He knows the
cheekbones.
perfect way
I mean,
to stand.
the light. He's like, oh wait, here's the light. It's like he has it down. So
totally.
working with him just like really, I feel like elevated like me as a costume designer.
Yeah.
Just like making sure everything's like perfect for him.
Perfect.
I have to say I loved it. It was pretty great.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's
I just
cool.
got to
The drag thing is so hard. I have to say I have only done it a couple times, but I don't feel like I did it that well.
I feel like
I was like,
in the beginning,
I'm lost.
I mean, yeah, I have to say, like, the first couple of episodes, I was like, OMG. And then by the 10th episode, I was like, all right, I got this down. Like, Cocoa Butter is one of the characters, and her finale dress it's like a walking mermaid. It's red. I like completely designed it from scratch. I walked downtown on a Saturday on my day off, just trying to like find the right fabric. And then I had this fabric pleated. And when she walked, she literally looked like a flowing like mermaid. So
Were you so happy? Were you just like,
I was like, I did it! Yeah. So
that's the best.
Yeah. I actually love that show. It was definitely a challenge, but I'm so glad that I did it.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's talk for a minute about Two Broke Girls, which I feel like, with the combination of the writing and the acting, and you just made this most iconic waitress look, like this Americana plus waitress has ever seen on television. And I feel like that really helped to put the show on the map. I think that your looks had such a huge impact.
Thank you.
And the color was really, really good of those uniforms also.
Right.
I think that was a huge part of it. And they looked real and sexy and appealing. And I think our listeners would love to hear about your process for cultivating those uniform looks.
Well, I have to say that the process of coming up with the Two Broke Girls uniforms was definitely it was a little bit of a challenge, right? Because you don't want it to be just a plain uniform. You need it to stand out a little bit. And these girls are young, and you want it to be flattering.
Right.
I started off with doing a lot of research for 70s diners, because it takes place in a 70s diner. And I came up with the idea of like ketchup and mustard.
Oh, of course.
Right? And so I was like, okay, ketchup and mustard.
Oh my God.
And then I went to ISW, and they have, so for everyone who doesn't know what ISW is, it's International Silks and Woolens, and it is a fabric store that us costume designers utilize in Los Angeles.
A lot.
And they have they have a sort of like a runoff section where they have all these like vintage fabrics. So I went one day and just kind of like walked around, and I actually found that fabric there. I mean, I had to recreate it at some point because we needed like 20 of them for a stunt.
Was it, it was vintage stock fabric?
Yes, 100%. And they only
Dead
had a
stock.
certain amount.
Oh.
Yeah. So in the beginning, I think we had like 8 uniforms, 4 for each girl. And then I ended up manufacturing the exact fabric.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah,
Well,
so
that
then
was
we
the
could do-
solution. 'Cause
yeah.
you did a lot of seasons of that show, right?
6 years on that show,
Yeah.
6 seasons. I mean, look, it was great. I have to say, the characters on that show are definitely characters.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
so just to reiterate about the uniforms, I made sure that they were complementary to each girl's attributes, and which was important to me because I wanted them both to look good in their own individual ways.
Yeah. In a uniform.
In a uniform, which is kind of tough.
Yeah.
You know,
totally.
Because the uniform is supposed to be a uniform.
Yeah.
And then just across the board, I got to design so many things from scratch on this, like made to order, from illustrations, walking around trying to find fabrics, like 6 years of like really getting to be creative. Like, again, this is Michael Patrick King, and he also is one that just kind of lets me like be creative and like help develop these characters visually, and like he also AJ and the Queen. So it's I've worked with him for 10 years, so I can kind of like read his mind, you know, at this point, which is really like good. The best.
Yes.
So, you know, Jennifer Coolidge's character is like my Polish Barbie doll, you know, and it's like I made so many like of these amazing coats that just kind of like topped off her outfits like every time. And she had a silhouette, but we, you know, it's like it was kind of like a uniformish silhouette, but then we just made it really fun and sparkle. She was all about sparkles.
Yeah.
And, you know, she's like 6 feet tall. And like,
is she?
Yeah. So
yeah, they couldn't be more different in type.
Oh,
body
not
type.
that Jennifer Coolidge. She is
yeah,
so it's okay. Yes, they're completely different. Like Beth Bears and Kat Dennings, completely different like shapes, completely different heights, completely different coloring. And so with them, you know, I tend to use darker, more stronger colors on Kat, and Beth's whole palette, Caroline's whole palette is just like beautiful, like creams and tans and expensive because she came from money.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
What I do like about this show, again, is the realism. They were broke, so I tried to like just create closets and just kind of like utilize the closets like there wasn't something new every episode.
Yeah.
Most of Kat's clothes were vintage except for like her jeans.
Right.
She wore vintage boots throughout the whole 6 years.
I noticed that they were the same.
Yeah.
I love that. I like to, especially a shoe repeat, a shoe, a jacket,
right?
Like personal item. I feel like the audience also becomes sort of attached to certain items they see on a character they watch a lot.
Yeah, and then I really feel like Caroline's character kind of kicked off the statement necklace. She wore those pearls all the time with almost every outfit. And the backstory of those pearls is that's the last thing she had from her rich life before she became a broke girl. So that was her thing to remember where she came from. You know?
Love it.
Yeah.
I love those little personal backstory is so important. I constantly am doing backstories. Because you have to make your character rich and real.
Yeah.
Gotta find the
backstory.
There
they are. They're so cute.
Yeah, Jennifer Coolidge is amazing.
She's amazing. She's so beautiful.
She's so
Can't stand
funny
it. And
too.
she's so funny. And she has a heart of gold, you guys. Like,
Yeah.
amazing. Look at that bra popping out of that, like, dress. It's just, I can't. She's so good.
Look at those uniforms. They're so good.
Thank you.
You killed it.
Thank you.
Okay, so I want to talk about Sarah Cooper for Everything Is Fine because she's so cool.
Oh my gosh.
And amazing. And then she came kind of straight off of Instagram fame.
Yeah.
Right?
TikTok and Instagram.
Yeah.
That's for
so
sure.
Can you talk about how that made the experience of working with her different or not?
Sure. Sarah Cooper is awesome.
Maybe explain who she is in case people don't completely know.
So Sarah Cooper is a comedian who basically voice over Trump. So it'll be Trump's voice, and she's just kind of mimicking what he does. And she has like over 1 million followers on Twitter and TikTok, and people
mesmerizing.
love her.
It's so bizarre to watch her.
I know.
With his voice, and it's transfixing.
She nails him. She nails.
I know.
She can really mimic this guy like so well. And the thing about Sarah is she is extremely intelligent, right? So she like keeps up with all the current events in the world, especially our government, and how our government is not necessarily run as a democracy, or how we would view a democracy. So,
what we were taught was a democracy.
Yes, exactly.
Different at this moment.
What this special does, the reason this special is so special, is that it kind of just takes on our government, and although it's comedy, it really is about like the state of the world. Like if you look at Maya Rudolph's monologue in Everything Is Fine, she's a weather girl, but she's literally having a meltdown about like how global warming and like just like everything that's happening in our world and like why we should be concerned and kind of freaking out that like WTF, what's happening?
Yeah,
so
kind of gets whipped up into the
it's
tension that we all feel, right?
Yeah, and it's a frenzy. It's kind of like, oh my God. So I really, if you haven't watched everything, is fine. You really should take a look at it. It kind of has a Saturday Night Live sort of like kooky, like fun comedy, but underlining is basically giving you a lesson in what's actually happening in our government and in our world right now.
She's a really interesting take, I feel like.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
And the costumes look really good.
And the costumes look amazing. And you shot that during, was it during COVID you shot that?
Oh, yeah.
It must have been, because she kind of came out while COVID was happening, was when she started to have a profile, right?
Yeah, we shot it in September.
Oh, amazing. Wow.
Yeah. Quick turnaround.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we had to get it out before the election.
Yeah.
And Natasha Lyonne directed.
Oh,
and
cool.
She's
a hoot.
amazing.
Yeah.
She's a hoot. She's like, I mean, you think I'm high energy? Like, this girl is like high energy. And we just had the best time. Like, my first meeting with her, within like 5 minutes, she was like, okay, you got the job. I love you. I was like, okay, girl, let's talk about my presentation. She was like, all the energy you're putting out there, like, sold. I was like,
love
yeah.
it. That's so cool.
It's nice when you get to work with like your people. You know what I mean? She's definitely like my people.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
I know you walk in a room for a meeting and it's like, you just kind of know.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Because it's a collaboration, 100%.
That's the thing. Like, working with like Chris Miller right now, it's like he really is a collaborator. And I realized like after doing, working on this job that I'm on right now, the after party, I need that. I need to work with people who want to collaborate.
Yeah.
Like, and when it's not that, I feel like the job just does not go as well for me personally.
It doesn't, and it's a vision. You have to share the vision.
Yes.
Right? You have to interpret the characters the way that they are in their heads. And you're not a mind reader, but if you have if you can read the characters the way that they meant them to be read, then you're already 99% there.
It's all about communication, and it's
Exactly.
like what they can communicate to you and what you can communicate back, and also just being able to tell the story visually.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. I often find, segueing slightly, that I learn something new on each project, and I'm constantly learning and evolving. Is this the case for you? I'm sure you're going to say yes. But what are some of the key things that you have learned from your work experience?
This is something I preach all the time.
Okay.
We all learn something new on every job, whether you're the ACD, that's the assistant costume designer, or whether you're the costume designer, or whether you're like the set person. Like, every job teaches you something. It can teach you how to be. It can teach you how not to be. You can learn a new skill, just like how somebody else does something, and you're like, whoa, I should like really like implement that into like how I do things. Like, it could also be about energy. Like, sometimes like, I've had people say that I'm inspiring because like, I'm always kind of like this. I'm always like really fast and I'm so passionate and let's do it. Yeah. Even if I've worked 21 days straight, I'm kind of like, okay, look, I'm tired, but let's do it. Yeah. So I really feel like every job is a lesson in its own, but it's what you take away from it. So it's either like how to do it, how not to do it, how inspired you can be, how like, even like small little tidbits about how to like take care of like certain fabric. You know what I mean? Or where to get something from,
Totally. It's a constantly learning, evolving experience. And I've said before, there's certain times when I can say, oh, I'm happy I made some of those mistakes when I made them.
Right.
Not making them with Jane Fonda.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's the process, is along the way you do it. That's how you learn, right? Some
100%.
things happen, it doesn't work, and then you go, oh.
I mean, I just kind of had this conversation yesterday. So I worked with Lou very many years ago, and I hope she's not going to be mad that I'm going to tell this story.
Our amazing Lou Eyrich.
She would never be mad. But she's like the nicest person on the planet.
She really is.
I mean, come on.
It would be hard to make her mad, but let's try. Just kidding.
Yeah, no. She has the patience of like a saint. So
no, I know.
Very early on in my career, like one of my first assistant costume designing jobs was with Lou, and it was for Nip Tuck. And I was always like, let me just get everything really fast. And I was pulling some bathing suits for a scene in Miami. And I had like 2 racks and and Lou comes up.
Bathing suits are hard.
Right?
Yes, always.
And this is back when Paramount still had a costume department that you could rent from. Yeah, I'm totally dating myself. Yeah, I know.
You look 25.
Thanks, girl. So I'm in my 40s. So Lou comes up and she looks at my rack, and in the sweetest Lou way, she's like, look, it's all about the taste level, right? And she was just like, quality over quantity. If you don't feel like it's the right thing, don't pull it. Only give me things that you really believe are going to work. And I was like, okay.
That's a gem.
It's a gem, you guys.
All
to
you
this
shoppers,
day,
listen to that.
and it's so true. Like, don't just give people filler.
Yeah.
You're wasting your time, like, ours. So, like, I do have to say that I crawled into the shoe bin. I don't know if you guys know what this is, but it's like there's like, it's like a bookshelf, but with like big containers of shoes. And you know, I'm still a small person, but I was definitely small. I was like 5 feet and maybe 100 pounds in. And I crawl into the shoe bin and I'm like crying.
You started crying.
100% I'm crying. You guys, I'm like early 20s. And like the person I idolize, who I think is amazing, who was very nice.
And she said it in the nicest way.
But I was so hurt that I let her down.
Yeah.
That's what it was, you know? Like, criticism.
But you didn't.
I mean,
she was just trying to school you.
She was just trying to give me some constructive criticism.
And it was probably great.
Thank you, Lou, because to this day I still think about that conversation clearly. So I'm crying in the shoe bin with a lot of shoes, and she walks up. And she finds me, and she's like, Tracy, don't cry. And then she starts to be tear. I'm like, I'm sorry, I just don't want to let you down. And she was like, please get out of the shoe bin. But
that
literally,
is a fantastic story.
20 years later, I'm still inspired by the fact that she told me that. Like, and I think about that every time I'm pulling clothes.
Yeah.
I'm not going to like pull filler. I'm going to pull what I think really works.
Yes. And you have to think that when you're out, because sometimes you just start losing track
of
your vision
so
to
much,
like bring you back.
Yeah.
I found myself lost, and then I just have to go like come back.
I agree. Like, and we have so much on our minds. Like, people don't even realize.
Yeah.
Like, I know everyone thinks that being a costume designer is really glamorous, and sometimes it can be. Sometimes, but for the most part, we're out there like in our sneakers, running from like mall to mall to mall to mall to mall,
hustling,
and there's so much going on in our brain trying to like make everything happen and shop all the characters and make sure we have all those interesting pieces that make those characters individual.
Yes.
So, you know, I think. So, thank you to Lou for giving me that little
Lou,
tidbit, because I think
queen.
about it all the time.
Lou Irick, amazing. I hope you have and probably have said that to some of your shoppers.
I have.
And I will be saying it because that is so true.
It's so true.
And it's like walking into a well-curated boutique, you know, where you're like, you can see things.
Yes.
Because if there's too much stuff, you can't see anything.
Right. And you want to be able to pick, like, out of all the things that you get that are really good, you want to pick out the really, really, really good pieces out of those good pieces. Do you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And then that's how you know you've gotten the best of the best for your character.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. Okay. So training is so important. Can you talk about how the next generation of designers can prepare for a career in our industry?
I love this question, but I'll say that most people don't always love my answer. So, here we go about training to be in the costume department or to become a costume designer. And I know we said this earlier. Most of us have to start from the bottom. If you start from the bottom and work your way up, you will be so much more educated about how to do your job once you are the costume designer. Take your time. Don't expect to like get out of college and like be a costume designer on like a big TV show. Because you won't be able to do the best job that you think you can do because you don't have the proper training. You know, it's like everything in theory at school is theory. And even though you've done some theater or you've done some shorts, it's not the same as actually being on a real live movie or TV set.
Yeah.
I have gone to USC and talked to like producing classes, like I've been on a panel, and the first thing they say is, how can I get out and be a producer? And I'm like, you're probably not going to. You're going to be in casting. You're going to be someone's assistant.
Yeah.
You're going to be going to get coffee because that's what you do. And then you build a network and people see your work ethic. Oh, that's an assistant that's going to take the trash out and willing to stay late and doing all the things and going over and beyond. People see that, and then they want to help you move into what you want to do.
Right.
And that is the most important thing that I can stress.
Yeah.
Is having a strong work ethic no matter what position you are in, because someone will see it.
Agreed.
And they will help you.
Yep. Be scrappy.
Be scrappy.
And say yes a lot.
But not, and like, if
Yeah.
someone asks you what you want to, so what are you working towards? You tell them
Yeah.
with enthusiasm.
Yeah.
And then they'll be like, oh, and that'll be in the back of their mind.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times, like, I've helped people get into the union, or like, what my assistant now, well, I have 2 assistants because I have 2 jobs, but, Rochelle Carino, like, she worked at Saks. She was in the studio department, and she left Saks. She really wanted to get into this, and she came and started to assist me, like, on commercials, and she would, like, but she was hustling, and now she's in 705 and in 892, and she's been on every one of my jobs for the last, like, 3 years.
Amazing.
But that's just one example. I mean,
Right.
I've
Yeah.
helped so many other people. Because if you have the right work ethic and someone sees it, I just feel like someone like me will take you under their
Will
wing,
notice. Yep.
and
Absolutely.
it'll happen.
Yep. Okay. Do you have any advice you would give listeners that you would have given yourself when you were just starting out? And I think you probably just already answered that a little bit, but is there anything specifically that you can think of?
Hey, listeners, the advice I would give you is to never give up,
Yeah.
right? And if you're really passionate about this, show your passion every time you're out there doing whatever it is. Whether it's a $5 job or a $50 million job, it's all the same because your work ethic is always the same.
Yeah. Great. I love that answer. Okay. I want to hit on this Warner Brothers podcast titled Hustle and Know, which highlights diverse people behind the scenes in order to expose unserved communities with the prospect of various careers in the film industry. So can you talk about this and why this is important to you?
Well, I can touch on it a little bit. I know that it's still a little in flux, but it's basically the thought behind the podcast is this. I come from a very diverse background. I'm very multicultural, like so many things. And I really just wanted to give back however I can, right? I feel like when I got into this business, there wasn't a lot of people that looked like me. I was lucky enough to work with Michelle Cole. I was her set costumer on
God,
That's So
Michelle.
Raven. Again.
What? I love Michelle.
Right? I mean, I can't say enough good things about Michelle Cole. And not only was she a mentor then, she's a mentor now. Like, I still call her to this day and is like, how should I handle X, Y, and Z? And she, again, is one of the most lovely people on the planet. So,
Right, truly.
yeah. So I got into this business not really seeing anybody like me. And I wanted to be able to reach out to other people that may not have a way into this business, you know what I mean? Or to help them understand, like, the different various positions that are available. Like, if you're into cars, you could be into transpo, you know what I mean? Or if you're into food, maybe you could be craft service. Like, it doesn't
Right.
always have to be, like, writer, producer, whatever. We have so many different careers that are behind the scenes that people have no idea. You know, it's like... an illustrator, like you, or even like someone who does the storyboards. If you're an artist, it's like, I just really wanted to give people the background of like what actually happens behind the scenes, and to basically like to give them the know, and they could bring their hustle and make it happen for themselves.
Right. That's cool.
Yeah.
So it's a podcast talking to, who are you talking to exactly?
So Sharon Davis was one of my first.
Sharon.
Yes.
But it's not just costume designers.
No,
though. Okay.
it's music producers, it's production designers,
Oh, cool.
it's craft service, it's transportation.
Right, that's so cool.
It's literally, when I say everybody, like, I'm trying to reach the kids that are in Bakersfield. You know, it's like, you live in Bakersfield and you want to come to town and you want to be like a part of the movie business. These are all these different careers that are available. Like,
Right.
this is how you can maybe get into it, or this is what it takes to do these things. And maybe I can help inspire one person. And if that's what I do, then yay.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Do you work with our unions, like the 705 and the Guild 892 to this end also?
100%. So I'm on the diversity committee for our union, the Costume Designers Guild. I also was on the panel for our cultural talks, which it's so interesting to really see that we do have diversity, but we don't really know it. You know, there's so many more people in our union than we actually see at meetings. I'm also on the pay equity committee because that's extremely important to me.
Extremely important, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, first and foremost, I want to say, like, during COVID was such a awesome time to connect. So I was able to connect with costume designers that I'd only like met at like our awards or like at a meeting maybe once, and like we really got together on these Zoom meetings, and we had these open and honest conversations about what's happening in our world. And like, you know, there's also like a Black costume designers committee that is that I'm on as well, and it's just so amazing to like connect with people overall about these different issues, you know, that we want to like raise awareness for. Pay equity, diversity, making sure that like we include everyone, LGBTQ, all of it, you know. It's just like I have been so inspired by everyone's commitment to really bring up our unions and to raise awareness. I
agree. I was really inspired by Michelle Cole myself.
What?
When I was working on a show at ABC, and we shared a building together, one of those buildings with like 2 big cages in them. And I'd never met Michelle Cole, but I knew of her, of course, and I was really excited to meet her. And I found her crew to be so inspiring because it is so diverse. And I hadn't, you know, my bad, hadn't really been considering all of that picture. And I was like, went out to coffee with her, and I was like, Michelle, I need to diversify my career. That's a really important thing going forward. And I've really made a really concerted effort, you know. But that's what it takes, all of us to do it.
100%.
So I love her.
It's
you've got all the same. We got all the same peeps.
I know. I love it.
I know. Lou and Michelle and Sharon.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, 3 of the best ladies.
I know.
I just want to say, like, being, I'm sure you're probably going to get to this at some point with your questions, but I just want to say, like, being multicultural and like, I mean, I'm Black. And it's like, but when I say I'm Black, people are like, no, you're not. And like, how offensive is that? And like, I have to like keep justifying like who I am. And so I have stopped doing that.
People say you're...
they're like, what are you? And I'm like, oh, I'm Black. And they're like, no, you're not. And I'm like, okay, well, you get to tell me what I am? I don't think so.
Wait, what is your
my ethnicity?
What's your makeup?
So my mom is from New Orleans. She's Black. She's Black, French, American Indian, and German. And my father is a Polish Jew from Jersey.
Oh, I love it!
Right?
No wonder I love you.
Right? And they met basically on a blind date-ish in the Valley at a bar. And
so
here I am.
Well, they did a good job with you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so for me, like, just I'm always trying to help any minority, any person really that has like the right work ethic, but also like any minority, like brown, green, purple, orange, whatever. Like, if I see you and you're out there like hustling and doing like just really being scrappy, like you said, like just trying to do the best you can do in whatever position you're in, I go up and I talk to you and I'm like, hey, so what are your goals? Like, what are you thinking? What do you want to do? And like, if it's something I can help them with, like, I do it. Because I feel like I want to bring up how people brought up me. Like, I don't want to, you know, it's like, I don't know. I just think it's so important to like bring everyone. If I'm going to go up, I want to bring everybody up with me.
You're that girl from Contempo Casuals.
That's me. Isn't that crazy?
That is so crazy.
I know. It's so interesting.
I love that. I would do that too, though. If I saw that spark in someone at a store, I'll be like, hey, do you want to, you know, come work with me?
Yeah.
Because it's just that thing.
I mean, Rochelle is a prime example of like, she literally is a ray of sunshine. Like,
it's great.
Whatever it takes, she gets the job done. And that's the kind of attitude you have to have.
Yeah. You see that in you see what is important to you reflected in someone else, and 100%. You want to be like, whoosh.
I want that around me.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Right. Okay, so I mean, I think you answered this too. I was going to say, what would you like to give? What message would you like to give our listeners today within the context of diversity opportunities with our industry? Is there anything else you want to add to that? I think we probably covered that.
I mean, this is what I will say because, you know, again, like, I'm very grateful that I get to be like on these, like, you know, SCAD, like these college panels where I get to like talk to kids. The thing I always say is don't be afraid to reach out, like even DM any of us costume designers and just say, hey, I'm really interested. Is there a way? Can we meet for coffee? I mean, I had so many Zoom meetings during COVID with kids who like reached out to me via DM, just give them advice or how to get started or can they come PA, like anything. It's
that
like,
is great.
And I just feel like don't be afraid to reach out, because you have to go after your hopes and your dreams. I know that sounds really corny, but it's true. It's like if you're passionate about something, show people your passion.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's so good and true.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I went back over that question, because yes, it is important to reach out, and we do connect.
Yeah.
And I get DMs all the time. Have you taken on any interns from SCAD or anything like that?
Technically on my jobs, I haven't been able to have interns because it's like a legality. Yeah,
thing,
it's a legal thing.
Yeah.
But
I mean, personally, I'm sure there are people listening who would like to, just to connect with you and help you in other ways, even if it's not connected completely 100% with your a job, you know what I mean?
I mean, I'd be happy to have somebody who wanted to come around and maybe shadow or something, or even like come and help do whatever. Because I have side projects and all sorts of things always going on.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
We're busy.
We're busy.
Yeah.
So again, like, don't be afraid to like reach out.
I love that. That's really good.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
what else do you want to talk about?
I don't get to see you enough, and I could easily talk to you all day. And but I'm sad to say we have to wrap it up.
No!
So yeah, I know. I want to thank Trayce for joining us today. I want to thank Eddie Marks, our sponsors.
Eddie.
And all of you for joining us today on Designing Hollywood podcast. Trayce's work can be found on Instagram at Trayce Gigi Field, and her website at traycegigifield.com. You can follow me at Allyson Fanger, and you can follow our podcast at Designing Hollywood Podcast or at Marilyn Vance.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you to our sponsor, Eddie Marks with ragvan.com. Ragvan is Hollywood's favorite place to rent fully equipped, high-quality trailers used by the entertainment industry to transport costumes and garments to and around filming sets in Hollywood. Also, thank you to our viewers. Be sure to follow Designing Hollywood Podcast on social media and subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Deezer, and our YouTube channel for complete past and current episodes.